Today I wanted to make a different video and talk about an article I came across a couple days ago about how Mango, a big fashion brand, has just released a campaign made with AI. I'm not just interested in 3D design, I'm also interested in a broader sense in the intersection between technology and fashion, and I thought that this was a great opportunity to talk more about that and discuss how can this affect us both as industry professionals but also as consumers. And of course, I know that AI is a bit of a polarizing topic, and you may or may not agree with what I'm going to say here, and that's okay, that's great. I love for you to write that in the comments and open a discussion about all this. Oh, and by the way, hi, I realize that I never say hi in my videos, so rude. So consider yourself welcome, grab a cup of coffee, and let's start. So this is Mango press release, and we have here this AI generated picture and then a text explaining what they've done and some quotes from their Chief Information Technology Officer. I'm going to highlight a bit of what I consider is more interesting in it. They have created the first campaign generated entirely using artificial intelligence for their limited edition Sunset Dream collection of the Mango Teen Youth line. I've read somewhere that they are not the first campaign generated by AI, but let's just pretend that we believe them. And here the Chief Information Technology Officer says, "This initiative reflects our continued commitment to innovation and being on the cutting edge in the fashion world." And he also says that artificial technology presents great opportunities that should act as a co-pilot to extend the capabilities of our employees and further amplify our creativity. This is interesting because if the campaign has been entirely generated by AI, then AI is not a co-pilot. So I would argue that generative AI used in this case is not a tool. It has completed the task for you. It's actually a service. It's the effective equivalent of Mango externalizing the creation of this campaign to a freelancer. But in this case, the freelancer doesn't have a name. It's just called algorithm. And then he continues saying, because technology will either make us more human or it won't. And this is my favorite sentence of this whole press release because it makes no sense. Like, what exactly means that technology will make us more human or it won't? Like, everything will be okay and we will live happily ever after, or we end up like Terminator. I don't understand the meaning behind this sentence. I don't know what's the point he was trying to make, but I find it slightly ominous. And then the press release continues saying that a variety of internal teams collaborated in the development of the campaign, and here they try to explain a bit how they did this. So the creation process began with shooting with real photos of each garment in the collection, and then a generative AI model was trying to learn how to generate images by positioning the real garments on a model. Finally, once the images were generated with AI, the art team selected, retouched, edited, and mastered the images in the photography studio. So what I'm getting from all this is that this process was actually very long and maybe a bit unnecessary because they already had the garments, they already had models, they already had a photography studio. So what's the point in doing all this work if then you are going to redo it with the AI? And it makes a bit unclear what was the actual job of the generative AI in this case. And I also wonder why Mango as a company decided to spend all that time and probably money to create something that was entirely unnecessary. Nobody has asked for an AI-generated campaign as far as I know, and this process doesn't seem to add anything meaningful to the traditional process. It makes me think that this whole thing, this whole AI-generated campaign, it's more of a marketing scheme, a way to become known as a leading brand that mixes technology and fashion, something like that, and to take advantage of this hype around AI, because nowadays it seems that if something doesn't have AI in it, it's not worth it. And also, it makes me think that a company like Mango, who thinks and considers benefit in the very long term, is not thinking about how much money and time they wasted in this campaign, but but in how much money and time they can save in future campaigns when their AI is trained enough to maybe not need all this team of photographers and models and designers. So that's also something interesting to consider in this particular case. And then in this last paragraph, we have a bit more of praising Mango for being super cool and aiming to create value through technological development, data management, and operational excellence. This is also another sentence that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I do wonder what value is actually providing this campaign. Because as I said, they already had the garments and the models and they did all the work. So what value did they bring the consumer? Because now the consumer is not seeing the actual images of the garment. They are seeing something generated by a machine. So I don't think that's a whole lot of value unless I think it not on the part of the consumer, but on the part of the company. If it turns out that they are able to streamline this process and refine it and be able to create a campaign, not with a team of photographers and models and designers and creative directors, but with a couple of prompters and someone with enough knowledge of Photoshop to remove the extra fingers on the AI-generated model, then it does have value for a company because then they can save on the salaries of all these people that they are not going to hire. Continue saying that Mango is super innovative and it has developed more than 15 different platforms that apply artificial intelligence at different points in its value chain. Then it says that uses generative AI platform to help the company's design and product team seek inspiration by looking at different concepts in order to co-create prints, fabrics, and garments and seek inspiration. This is interesting because we will talk a bit more about this later in a couple of minutes. But I wonder how did they train this particular generative AI? Because if they trained it like all of the current generative AI systems, it can incur in potential copyright infringement and plagiarism. So, how does this affect us as industry professionals? I do believe that as part of the industry, we should be curious about all the new technologies and understand how they work, because otherwise we will be unable to use them to their full advantage and incorporate them into our work if we want to. In this case, Mango clearly states that they are using AI extensively, not just as part of this campaign, but also as part of their company systems. I think that's important because Mango is a big brand, a global brand, and that means that it's one of the brands that sets a bit of the trend of the way of working across the whole industry. And that trend that they seem to be setting, from what we could read in Mango's press release, was that they want to be using AI at all costs. So we have to ask why. And I do believe that in a company like this, they are thinking long-term goals. So even though in this case, this campaign probably would have been quicker to make and probably cheaper to do in the traditional way, they are opening up a door to do things in this new way, incorporating AI, because they think that it's going to have a benefit in the long term. What does that mean in a practical sense? So if it gets to a point where they only need a couple of people to introduce the prompts to the AI and then a couple of people to edit the pictures enough so that they seem real, then the type of workers they are hiring, they are not as highly skilled as traditional photographers, models, and creative teams. So if they are not that skilled, they are also not as well paid. What is effectively happening is that the work that is being done, the work of creating a fashion campaign in this case, is being devalued. And also for these prompters, for these people who introduce the prompts to the AI software, their work is not as unique because their authorship is not essential for the result. It's been proven that with the same prompts, the AI softwares can produce wildly different results. So you as a worker are replaceable. You don't have any unique skills, any unique worldview, techniques, or expertise or way of doing things that it's just yours. It can be done the same way by another person that may be willing to accept a lower salary. And your skills start losing value. So companies are less inclined to pay for them. And this same thing can affect all the professionals involved in a fashion brand. So not just photographers and models, but also designers, pattern makers, 3D designers, and all that. And aside from that, there are also ethical concerns about generative AI, because currently none of the generative AI softwares have been trained in an ethical way. They all include private and copyrighted content that has been used without permission or compensation to the authors. That's why, in my case, my personal stance is that I don't want to use a software that steals from creators and people in general. But even if you personally don't care about that, there's also the issue of a potential copyright infringement, because if these softwares have been trained in copyrighted images, you can be inadvertently or intentionally be plagiarizing someone else. When you create a design in a generative AI software, the software incorporates images from all kinds of sources, and it can be that you are creating something that is not fully original. So it can be that is something very, 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 very close, very dangerously close to something that already exists and is owned by another designer, artist, or whatever. That's why there's also a debate right now about the IP issues of everything that is created with generative AI, not just images, but also text. And a lot of companies are starting to refrain to use these kind of softwares because the legal implications can make them not worth it. And on top of that, there's also something that we can take into account, and that is the sustainability problem. Because if we want our industry, that is currently one of the most polluting industries, to be more sustainable and more respectful with the environment, then generative AI may not be the best way. Because first, AI can make fast fashion to be even faster. Companies like Shein, Inditex, or even Mango are already putting out a lot more designs, a lot more garments that they should. But with generative AI, they could increase that number to stratospherical quantities, and that means more waste, more garments that are going to remain unsold or that are going to be worn a couple of times and then discarded, contributing to the global issues of overconsumption and waste. But also because generative AI in itself, it's incredibly wasteful. It consumes enormous amount of energy and water, and I'm not going to get a lot into this. I'm not going to get into the numbers, but I'm going to leave a link in the description to a very lengthy article that does get into the numbers and graphics and all that. But essentially, it means that due to the way that generative AI works, that all the data centers that are involved, all the energy that is being used to power them, all the water that is being used to cool them, and also the carbon footprints of the components that are involved, all of that means that generative AI at this current stage, it's very, very unsustainable. So these are some of the things that we as industry professionals can consider when we are faced with a company that uses generative AI, or if we are considering using generative AI ourselves. Like any new technology, like it happened with 3D, for example, we have to make our own decisions, we have to ask questions, we have to be informed, we have to consider the impact of that technology, and of course we have to consider if it actually adds anything meaningful to our work, if it has any actual value, if it's going to improve our work and the industry as a whole, or if it doesn't. So how does this affect us as consumers? So let's go to Mango's website, to this collection that had the AI generated campaign, and let's imagine that I'm a teenage girl and I want to buy a cute top to wear for this party that I've been invited to next week. So I'm going to pick out this product and I'm going to open it. So I open it and I can read limited edition, bit printed top. I have here my AI generated image that doesn't have any indication that it's been AI generated. And if I scroll down, I can see the composition, designed in Barcelona, manufactured in India, and here in the description, limited edition, colors, ethnic print, blah, blah, blah. I don't see anywhere that this is made by AI, that this campaign picture is made by AI. And this is actually super weird because I went to Mango's website yesterday and I realized that it did say at the bottom of the product page that the picture was AI generated. But now it doesn't say anything. So the big problem here is that I'm going to make a purchase decision based on the fit of something that is depicted on a picture that doesn't exist, that is depicted on a model that doesn't exist. So I can decide to buy this top based on the fit of the model, but then when it comes to my home, it might fit completely different. So that translates in a worse customer experience because either I'm going to return the product or I'm going to keep it but never wear it. Of course, I can also be very lucky and buy the product and it fits perfectly and I can keep it and I will never know that that image was AI generated. But the point of this is that the consumer needs to know these kind of things. We deserve to know these kind of things. If we are being sold something based on an image that doesn't exist, I want to at least know that and make my own decisions. I can adjust my expectations, for example, for the moment when that garment comes to my home, and at the very least I deserve some kind of honesty from the brand to indicate if that image was real or not. And second, and maybe more shocking, do you remember the time when people started complaining because brands were photoshopping the hell out of models and people demanded to have more representation for diverse body types, and we all got angry and protested because brands were promoting unrealistic beauty standards and those were causing body image issues, especially in young people? Those were the good times, because now explain to me how we've moved from that to a brand creating a whole campaign with a very skinny model that isn't even real, and the campaign is directed specifically to a teen audience. How are we not collectively raging against this? How it is not the most immoral thing a brand can make? Isn't this the epitome of unrealistic beauty standards? How can you get more unrealistic than that? That showing a model that doesn't exist. It baffles me that someone somewhere in the management chain in Mango thought that this was actually a good idea and decided to implement this. It baffles me and it also terrifies me. We, the consumers, were pushing for a change in the industry and we were getting somewhere. It was slow, it wasn't perfect, but we were getting somewhere. But then a brand comes and creates an entirely unrealistic campaign, and seemingly we accept it. And Mango, even if they see themselves as these super innovative brands, the first in the world to do something like this, they are actually not. For example, Levi's not so long ago did a campaign where the models were also not real, and they justified that saying that they wanted to support diversity, so they had created diverse AI models. So if they actually wanted to support diversity, why wouldn't they hire an actually diverse model, a black model, a model with a disability, a transgender model, a model within any of the minorities that are not usually represented in the fashion industry? Why not hire her and pay her a salary to make that campaign? Because that's supporting diversity, that's paying diverse people to do what they do, to do their work, and include them in the mainstream fashion industry. To sum up, I think that we as consumers should demand to be taken more seriously. If we are going to be sold a product with an AI-generated image, at least we should know that. At least there should be transparency about that and make it as clear as possible in the product pictures. And we also deserve to have representation and diversity in the fashion industry, and to have brands that actually do that in a meaningful way. Now, after all this, how to end this video? I think I'm going to end by saying that it's very important to reflect on the uses of technology. It's not all bad, it's not all good. A lot of technologies actually do add a lot of value to our lives and our work, but we do have to reach our own conclusions. We have to ask questions, we have to be informed, and above all else, we have to position ourselves. We have a responsibility both from the inside and from the outside of the industry. It does seem sometimes that we cannot make much of a difference, but we can always act. We can always support the things that align with our values and fight against the things that we feel that are wrong. We can buy from specific brands and don't buy from others. We can work with specific brands and don't work with others. And we can protest and we can be vocal about what we want and what we think we deserve. deserve. So I'd like to continue this conversation with you in the comments. I know that we each have our own opinions and some may agree with me, some may not, but I know that I always learn a lot from listening to other people's thoughts, and that's why I even encourage you to disagree with me respectfully, please, because I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know also if you'd like to do more videos like this in the future, and I will probably see you next week with another Claude tutorial. It's going to be a good one if I have enough time to edit it, so let's see you next week.